Today we're going to do a tutorial on how to put graphics onto a dirt bike. A good friend of mine is remodeling his 1999 KX250, going to bring it back from the dead, as he says. And we are going to put some graphics on there from madcowmotos.com. Thank you to Jason Montgomery for hooking us up with some graphics, good quality graphics, thickness, well-designed graphics. Can't say anything. I mean, they're awesome. They're great. Do a quick tutorial. Hope you enjoy. Thank you. Okay, first and foremost, what I like to do is, this is the front tip of the front fender. I like to take an X-Acto knife, and I like to actually go around, because these are very thick. They're good, nice graphics. And sometimes they're even cut out where you can see them on the back side to where they've been laced. But I like to take my X-Acto knife and I like to cut around the edges without cutting the graphics. But I do like to get as close as I can. That way I can kind of measure up and see where I want my graphics on the fenders before I make a mess and pull the stickers apart. I'm trying to do something nice and neat. It makes it a little easier to pick out where you want to be. Alright, now that I've got it cut out around the outside, like I said, it's not perfect, but it's enough to be able to show where I can put it onto the bike. And these old school bikes are good and squared off. I'll show you an example of a newer model bike a little later on into the tutorial. But this, with it cut out, I can pull right here, and I can stick the tip to the top, and I can look and I can see where I'd like for this sticker to go without having to do a lot of pulling and tearing and tugging onto the graphics. That makes it a little easier, a little neater to put on. Okay, I've got my sticker cut out, I've got my fender cleaned off. First thing I like to do is on the very bottom, where I've got it lined up, I like to take the back side of the paper and peel it back. This saves me from getting finger marks and everything all over the other side of the graphics. I like to peel it back, hold it back like this right here, and find the mark where I want to start. And it's kind of eyeball work where you can find dead center, okay? Then go ahead and just gently press the fender or the graphic onto the fender. That way you can move it around a little bit to see if that's where you like it or not. And if that looks good, you can still hold it right here at the bottom, and where you've bent it over, pull it up. And as it's coming up, be very easy. You don't want to just grab it. Just let it barely stick to your finger. And just easily, as you go up. Now I have a squeegee for bigger parts, bigger, you know, shrouds and whatever, but this being a smaller fender, I'm just going to take my thumb and I'm just going to kind of work my way up, get all the air bubbles out, and work it around. Now, if you do end up having a few things bubble up on the ends or on the corners, take a heat gun, very carefully take a heat gun, because this will melt. Even though it's good and thick material, it will melt if you mess around and put it too close. But if you don't have a heat gun, no worries. Get a hair dryer. And I know everybody has a hair dryer somewhere. If not, you can get them really cheap at the dollar store. And just mold it on that, and then you can mold it around with your finger. This stuff it'll loosen up, and you'll be able to make fender on there real nice and easy. Okay. All right, we're getting ready to put the rear fender on. I've gone and I've trimmed the fender out. And it's got a little dip in the middle. See where the fender has a dip in it? That's what we're gonna, I got the heat gun ready. James is gonna sponsor, see I can line it up right here with the rear end. Look up the middle. Now this is gonna be one of those you probably don't have to do the stick 2 or 3 different times. I'm gonna turn the camera over to James Wilson. Hi James.
Hey.
This is James's new old dirt bike. How long have you had this bike, James?
Since I was 20 years old.
That's been what?
A long time
3
ago.
years ago?
Yeah. Old.
All right, I'm gonna turn the camera over to you, James. All right. First and foremost, we're gonna get this right here lined up. If you kind of eyeball and then fold it down, and you feel the crease running in through here, and you want to look straight down through the bike and see if this graphics right here has a V, so you can kind of put your finger right here and kind of run it down the middle to see what we have, and try to get it lined up. And then once again, we're going to go back to the folding of the back side of the graphics to get us lined up. And it's not that hard, but it's also, and I know some of you guys might be thinking, or girls, whoever, thinking this is a whole lot of crap that you don't have to do. And that's fine if you don't want to do it. I just prefer that these graphics that come from Mad Cow motos, they're very sticky. I prefer not to pull them on and off as many times as I can keep from it. But also I want it to look as good as I can and as straight as I can and try to do it right the first time. So I get it started, then before I lay the rest of it down, I'm still trying to judge up and down through here. And it's a lot of eyeballing. Now there are some perfectionists who prefer to take a ruler and you'll get the direct center, but if that's how you want to do it, that's how you can do it all you want to, however you want to do it. So we got her lined up. Once again, we're going to pull the sticker off on the back side. And once again, those perfectionists may be thinking, gosh, you pulled a whole lot of sticker off at one time. My finger's good and dry. It's going to slide across the graphics pretty good, pretty evenly. And run right down the spine of I call it the spine of the back fender. And I try to run it evenly because that way the ends are still up and I can run the air bubbles off the sides. This little tab, I'm going to go ahead and run it close to home as I can get it. In other words, where hopefully it'll land. Hold it up, run it down the middle, and it'll fold up right in the crease. Now this one you're going to have to just kind of lay it down and be easy with it. Right now the only reason why you push down the middle is because in the middle that's the only part that's stuck. I can still lift these sides up to do any kind of arrangement I need. Okay, I got the rest of it just kind of stuck down my hands, and I got my, actually James's trusty heat gun. Like I said earlier, be careful with a heat gun. You will overheat these things. A hairdryer works pretty dang good. All right, with it going over the edges, I like to take a heat gun. I like to get a little bit of heat to them. And then you'll start seeing them kind of fold over. Not a whole lot of heat, just enough where you can come up and that you can still grab it with your hands, touch it with your hands, but you want to stay ahead of yourself and work these out. And you'll see them kind of, that too much heat, they'll wrinkle up a little bit. And you'll let it cool off. And see how flimsy it got all of a sudden? It's because I got a little too much heat on it. That's why you don't want to put a lot of heat on these. And just easily. And yes, those of you who are probably thinking, why don't you have a squeegee? I prefer to do it with my hands because I can feel the wrinkles. And I can feel the air bubbles coming in and out of them. And I can push in the corners a whole lot smoother with my fingers. And see how it's laying down very nicely. Laying down real nice. Now, one trick of the trade. I don't have one right here to show you, but if you were to have a little air bubble that you can't get pushed out or squeegee out, best thing to do, in my opinion, and I know Mad Cow may not want me to tell you this, guys, but this is what I do. I try to push the air bubble close to a black spot, and I take a straight needle, like you get in a sewing kit, just kind of poke a little hole in it, and then work all the way around it to get the air bubble out. Now we'll move right here to this little corner since we're already right here on this edge. Now put the heat, a little bit of heat to it. Not a lot, but just enough to make it enough where you can bend it around corners. See, it'll kind of crease up. You want to keep pushing. Put a little heat to it, keep pushing. Put a little heat to it, keep pushing. Put a little heat to it, keep pushing. And it's kind of steps over and over and over. Don't put a lot of heat to it, because like I said, you'll melt these fenders, well, you'll melt the graphics, and them look like crap. And sometimes you just can't help it. There's going to be a little crease here and there every once in a while. Okay, now we're going to work on doing the radiator shroud, the side number plate, and the fork guard to get the graphics on top of them. First thing we want to do is take our contact cleaner and rub them down really well to make sure all the oil and grease is off of them, fingerprints, whatever. And I've already done that prior to this getting started video. So I went ahead and cut out all of my graphics. I got all the holes, as you can see, where you can line up your holes in your graphics for your screws. Now, this is a very important step in my opinion. A lot of people want to just kind of go blind at this, and there's also some people that like to take a Sharpie and they'll make a little mark on their graphic and a little mark on the plastic in different areas to make sure everything's lined up. Personally, it seems like every time I try that, the lines never end up in the same spot. But once again, we're going to go with the same method we used earlier with the rear fender and the front fender, and we're going to peel it back. After I find me a spot where I like, we're going to try to hold it stationary, and then we're going to peel back one corner. After we get the corner peeled back, once again, we'll go over the hole, and we'll fold it down this way. And we'll try to tuck it in where you can grab a hold of it here in a little bit. Make sure all of our holes are lined up to where they need to be. And instead of pushing right up here next to the top, we're going to touch right here on the back side of one of these screw holes. And that way we can go ahead and we can move our graphics around and see about where we make, if that's where we want it or not. And work it down with our fingers. See how we're good and lined up with our hole right there. And we're going to work it around with our fingers. Not a whole lot, because we still want to be able to move it just in case we get off a line. So we'll pull this back. And we'll go a little further. Now, this is one of those things where you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. Like I said earlier, these stickers, they're very sticky, but then again, you want to do what you can to keep from sticking them and pulling them off, and sticking them back on and pulling them off. So, I touched right here on this other spot. I'm moving on to the next hole. And yes, I'm ripping this on purpose, to where we don't have too much going on at one spot. If you could see where I ripped that off in half. Now, I'm going to lay this down without touching it. And I want it to try to lay down. You're not going to get these exactly perfect over these screw holes. But we're going to get it pretty dang close. Once again, sometimes you got to pull them apart. It's easier to pull a small part than it is a big part. You know, ease your way around these holes. Now, once we get this started, we're going to peel this back. And right here where we ripped off, we'll pull the rest of this off. Notice I haven't done any of the rest of the fenders just yet, or touched it, or pushed any air bubbles out, because I want to get this thing lined up. So we'll lay this down, get it right on our hole, and work it out. Now, the graphics is pretty much stuck where I want it to be. What we're going to do now is we're going to take our fingers and we're going to work our ways to the sides. A little piece of trash. I could feel it with my fingers. Once again, that's why I prefer to use my fingers over a squeegee in bigger areas like this. But you have to be really careful so you don't mound up your graphics around the sides. Go around the edges with the finger. And the good thing is you can kind of use the glare. Let's see on the light. Now I have a different glare, a different angle. And you can use the glare you like. Look around, see if you have any air bubbles or any places that are not stuck down very good. But from what I can see, it looks like all of my holes have lined up. All of my graphics are down. And there you go. We'll move on real quick. I'm trying to make this as quick as we can do, if possible. We'll go on. We'll make sure we don't have any trash this time. Get our pad. Now, in my opinion, these side plates right here are the worst parts. Lay them out. And see they have a hump at the top, so it makes it a little bit more difficult to line these up. But you want to make sure your outer sides are lined up good as well. Use the same principle. Put your fingers in the middle. Use the reflection. Push out all the air bubbles. Graphic install. Now, last but not least, these are sometimes a little pain in the rear end. I like to start these over here on the sides because the way they have a bow in them in the middle, and then they'll bow up at the top up here. Now, pull down here. You want it even with the bottom, but you also want it to be even straight up and down. There's not many people pay attention to it if you're on the bottom of your tire, but there's also not a lot of people that pay attention to your fork guards, period, that I know of. But then again, I could be totally wrong. And there you have it. Now,